This is Captain Ross with 3B's Captain School, and this video is communications in our deck video series. This video is in our deck series, and in this video we're going to cover communications. Communications, using the radio proficiently and knowing proper radio protocol reflects well upon the radio operator's professionalism. It is essential that each captain and crew member is aware of common distress signals and how they are used in emergencies. Radio systems for mariners include several basic types, including the VHF-FM and medium high frequency radios. VHF-FM radios are used for local short-range marine communications and operate on a line of sight principle. So this line of sight principle basically says if the antennas can't see each other, then the VHF doesn't work. And the range is limited because of the curvature of the Earth. You get too far away and your antenna is too short, and this curvature of the Earth is going to interrupt that line of sight. So the range is limited by line of sight for VHF radios. Effective communication range depends primarily on the height of the antennas on both the receiving and transmitting stations. All right, so we'll talk about single sideband, medium frequency, and high frequency radios are used to communicate when out of VHF radio range. While VHF-FM radios have a range up to 50 miles, SSBs can range from a few hundred to thousands of miles depending on atmospheric and weather conditions. So just remember, VHF-FM, short range, line of sight. Some of the issues or disadvantages, it can get a little overcrowded on some of the frequencies, causing interruptions in the limited range. The medium and high frequency radios, they can have some atmospheric conditions that cause interference. So that's one of the disadvantages to them. Now you can get cell phone coverage, within a few miles of shore, which is pretty good, or sat phone. If you are constantly operating outside of a few miles of shore, it might be wise to invest in a satellite phone for communications. So back to the VHF-FM radio, let's go over some of the frequencies that we use. So 6 is a standby SAR communications for ships and aircraft. Channel 9 is alternate calling channel for non-commercial vessels. 12 is port operations. 13 is pretty common, and that's bridge to bridge. Transmissions on this frequency are limited to 1 watt output, and that helps with that overcrowding on the radio, because if everyone was talking on 13 in a crowded waterway and you had normal strength of signal, we'd all walk all over each other, no one would hear anything. So they're limited to 1 watt. And we use that for preventing collisions at sea, inland waters, and bridge to bridge. So talking to the bridge of my boat to the bridge of your boat, or the bridge of my boat to an actual bridge that I need to a drawbridge or swing bridge. 16 is international calling in distress frequency, or hailing in distress. So this is used by all vessels in emergencies or to establish contact with others. So if I need to get contact with a vessel, and let's say I hail them on 13 and I didn't get them, I can switch to channel 16, but I'm supposed to just hail them on 16 and ask them to switch to 13 or another working frequency before we start a conversation. So transmit and receive distress calls, distress messages, transmit and receive urgent marine information broadcasts, identify vessel traffic concerns. You can place a preliminary call to other vessels or units in order to establish communications before shifting to a working frequency. And they're used to announce safety marine information broadcasts. So don't use 16 except for hailing and distress. Channel 22 is the primary VHF frequency for Coast Guard to civilian boat communications. So if you call a Mayday, channel 16, to get the Coast Guard's attention, they're going to ask you to switch and answer on 22 Alpha to continue the conversation so that we don't take up the airwaves on channel 16. Also, if the Coast Guard has a urgent marine information broadcast, weather or debris in the water, objects in the water, navigation hazards, those kind of things, they're going to announce that they have an urgent marine information broadcast on 16, then usually switch to 22 to actually make the broadcast. So that single sideband, medium, and high frequency, 2182 kilohertz is the international distress and calling frequency, same as channel 16. You can hail people, switch them to a working frequency, and keep it free and clear for emergency transmissions, Mayday, those kind. 2670 is the Coast Guard working frequency. And then 3023.5 and 5680 are international search and rescue on-scene frequencies. So let's say there's a large SAR case, or there are a couple different vessels searching a body of water, and they're using the single sideband radio for their communications. Instead of keeping those emergency communications on 2182, when they get there, they'll have everybody switch to one of these frequencies to continue communicating between the boats involved in that search and rescue case. Okay, some operating procedures. As an uninspected passenger vessel captain or master, operating a voice radio will be a frequent task, so it's important to know the basic radio procedures. So let's go over a list of don'ts. Don't break radio silence. Break it only for emergencies or ensuring safe navigation under Bridge-to-Bridge Radio Telephone Act. Don't use profane or obscene language. Don't use unauthorized pro words, abbreviations, or procedures. Speak in a calm, clear voice. Don't use extremes of voice pitch. And stay away from phrases such as would you believe, be informed, be advised. They're unprofessional and not correct radio procedure. So don't key the microphone unless you're ready to transmit. Keying the microphone also transmits a signal causing interference in that frequency. That key on the microphone is also, I call it the safety switch or safety button. If you're in the middle of a transmission and you start getting tongue-tied or having trouble trying to determine what you want to say, just let go of that key and think about what you're going to say, take a breath, and then re-key it and continue your conversation. You'll sound much more professional doing it that way. All right, let's go over some urgency calls. So the number one priority emergency call is Mayday, and that call is made by repeating Mayday, 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 repeating the word Mayday 3 times. It's a distress call of the highest priority. It shows that a person, boat, or aircraft is threatened by grave or imminent danger and requires immediate assistance. You broadcast this on 2182 kilohertz on the medium high frequency radios or channel 16 on VHF-FM. A Mayday call has absolute priority over all other transmissions and shall not be addressed to a particular station. All vessels hearing a Mayday should immediately cease transmissions that may interfere with the distress traffic. When making a Mayday, make sure you speak clearly and make sure you give your position, nature of distress, number of persons on board, and description. All right, next in line is pon pon. And again, you say pon pon, pon pon, pon pon 3 times. You broadcast this on 2182 or channel 16. This urgency signal consists of repeating pon pon 3 times. It means that the calling station has a very urgent message to transmit concerning the safety of a ship, aircraft, vehicle, or person. And then finally, we have the Securite. So you're going to repeat that 3 times. Securite, Securite, Securite. And this is a safety signal spoken 3 times and transmitted on 2182 kilohertz of channel 16. It indicates a message concerning the safety of navigation or important weather warnings that will be transmitted on working frequency 2670 kilohertz or channel 22. You can also, you'll hear these security calls sometimes. Let's say a tugboat is pushing a barge coming through a narrow pass or an inlet. They'll give a security call on 16 asking any concerned traffic to contact them on another frequency, usually channel 13. And that's just for safety. They're coming through a inlet or, like I said, a tight waterway, and they just want to reach out to any boats that might be meeting them in that waterway so that they can avoid a situation before it becomes one. This concludes our video on communications in our deck video series. Please check our YouTube channel for our other videos.